Hey there YouTubers, thanks for tuning in. This is Daniel Strong with Excel VBA is Fun. Today we're going to talk about using VBA and using the SumIfs worksheet function within Visual Basic. You could be using this in a user form, you could be using this in a column-to-column and row-to-row report that's writing dynamically. So what we need to do, we've already named all four of these columns, but obviously we have to sum something. So we're going to go ahead and highlight these. Oh goodness. Well, we need to, how about Control Plus? If I have a macro on the right click, then that would at least work. So what we've done here, added a couple new columns. Okay, let's debug this. Must have been something from the selection change. Okay. Going to go ahead and just comment all of this out so that stops bugging us. There, now I can click anywhere I want. That was from our previous video, my apologies. So we're going to make a new one. Let's call this one region. And then we're going to make one called, how about, we could just, everybody uses sales, but why not? So we'll make a few of these south. Oops. Let me select that area and Control Enter. Select a few more, and we'll call this north. Control Enter. And let's see here. We'll select several more, and we'll just make the rest of these west or something. Okay, Control Enter. And surely there's a few more. Alright. So, and then the next one we'll put sales. We'll just enter a random number. So, let's Control up. And for the sales, we'll just select that entire region here. Control Shift up. Shift down. Okay. I'm going to say equals random number between, and then we'll say 1 and 1,000, and we'll hit Control Enter, and then let's Control C to copy, and we'll go up here and we'll just paste values. Right click and SV, or right click and choose the values. So if I can hit escape here. So now we have random sales. I'm going to highlight all of column F, Control Shift 4 or $, changes them all to dollar format. So now we have all these different regions that we could possibly want to sum up, all of the regions, or maybe even between a date range. So let's create a little space here. What we're wanting to do is get the total sales. And we'll put it right here. And then we need to, for a SumIfs, we need to have several criteria. We need to make it a little tricky. So let's make sure, let's have it, let's have a starting date, and an end date. So I'm going to highlight, I'm going to highlight all these, and we'll forget the product number right now. So we'll have a date, oh goodness, start date and an end date. So let's say from January 1st, 1999, all the way till December 31st of the year 2005, okay? And the total sales will go here. In fact, since that's a sum, that's where the answer is going to go. Let's make that a different color than our criteria, just so we keep things clear here. And for now, the region we want, let's say it's south, okay? Click here, and we'll make that yellow, just so just a visual aid. Here's where we're typing our criteria. Here's where it's going to end up. So let's do that now. Alt F11, okay? We're in our Visual Basic menu. I'm kind of feeling like getting a new, fresh module without all that crud already typed in there. So now we're ready to go. We got a new module. Here's our new procedure name. It's going to be VBA. SumIfs. That's good. So let's collect our criteria as different variable names, shall we? So let's say my region, my reg equals, and what is that, H6? Let's cheat, okay? So sue me, I'm cheating. Instead of doing all this range stuff, I'm going to show you how you can actually work. If you know that you're going to be operating on this worksheet, you don't have to put the worksheet name. You could just put H6 and put it in these little square brackets. So my reg is H6. Let's see. Let's say ST date, or our starting date, is going to be, what is that, H8. And I'm going to scooch this down just ever so much. Alright, our end. Now you don't want to say edate because that is an actual VBA function. So let's just say end date equals H10. And finally, that might be all we need. Yeah, if we're just doing the region and between this date and that date, we can take the sales pretty easily. We do need to name these ranges. I apologize, Alt-IND. You'll need to watch some of the previous videos in this series, but we can dynamically name these ranges. I'm just going to copy and paste some stuff here and blaze through this here. We'll name this one PT underscore region. How about PT underscore reg? Control V to paste all that stuff here. And we're simply going to change the column. We'll go with column E, and then that should work. I'll test it, due diligence there. A new one is going to be PT underscore sales, and then we will do the same thing. Copy and paste that, use column F, and test it, dancing ants look okay. So that's our dynamic range for that. So now that we have all these different column areas named, we can get started on our SumIfs. And what we would normally do if we were just typing a worksheet function is we would use SumIfs, and they would want our sum range. So we would start by typing in PT underscore sales, and then they're going to want, and you'll have to look up here, then they're going to want our criteria range 1, comma, the criteria. So let's say we used this column, or excuse me, the date column, PT underscore date, and then put a comma, and then put whatever the criteria was, so that may be greater than or equal to the starting date, and then comma, the criteria range again is the date added, and then comma, the next criteria would be also that it's less than or equal to the ending date, and then put a comma, the next criteria you need is the region. So you'd type in PT underscore REG, that's the region range, and then you would put a comma and give the criteria for that range, which is, in this case, south. And then you just, once you're done with all these different criteria, you could have even more. So you just list the range each time, and then after the comma, which pinpointed criteria you want out of that range. What do you want to glean from that information? And so that will give you the sum of all the things that are within that date range that are south, or whatever you want it to be. So you could have a whole bunch of criteria. Excuse me, my phone is ringing. That's terrible. But anyway, I'm going to hit escape here because we're going to go ahead and get started. So hit Alt F11, and we'll go ahead and pursue that in our function. Alright, so we have our criteria for this, this, and this, and that's all we're going to do for now. So what we're going to do is, let's test it out first. Hit F8 and make sure these little brackets are really legitimately going to work. So H6 is going to be my reg south. Hey, that's working. That was H6. Start date is that date, and the end date is, yeah, that looks good. All right, so I'll hit F8 and we'll think this through. What do we want to know? We want to know the total sales for all this jive, just like we did. So we're gonna you can either put it in a cell directly, or you can pop it in a variable like T sales or something. And then, after you have that figured out, then you could put looks like I6 equals T sales if you wanted to do the variable route, if you wanted to make more calculations using these variables, but you don't have to. You could just pop the final answer in there. In this case, if we want to do more with the total sales before we pop it into a cell, into its final resting place, we're just going to leave it in a variable just for kicks, okay? So T sales, random variable I just made up, equals application.worksheet function dot, and we're going to use SumIfs, and go ahead and put your open parentheses, and let's get ready. So you can see they can handle quite a few arguments. They don't give you as many clues as when you type in a worksheet, so you kind of have to go over it and review it, if not memorize it. So argument 1 is a range. So that clues me in that it's going to need to be a range of either cells or some kind of range. And you can see up ahead, argument 3, it doesn't say that that's a range. It just says argument 3. So some little clues that you'll begin to realize when you get used to this. So the first argument is a range, and we remember that that is our sum range. What do you want to tally up at the end of all this? So I think we called it PT. Actually, we may need to put it in either a range form like this, or at least put it in brackets. Let's try it as brackets. Okay, PT underscore sales, I think it was called. Okay, and so put a comma after that. Our next range that we're going to use is for the first criteria range, which is PT underscore date, I believe. PT underscore date. Now, the next one is going to be related and linked to this date. What do we want to glean from that? We want that to be greater than or equal to the starting date. So we're going to say, and put your criteria, if there's any operators like greater than, equal to the power of, I guess, we'll put those in quotes. So let's say greater than or equal to, and then put our quotes again, and we'll join that with an ampersand. And so greater than or equal to, and join that to our variable, which was st date. So it's greater than or equal to, joined with the start date. Now let's put a comma, and again you'll see we're going to use the next criteria is the date range again, but then the next thing will be our date range, with the criteria will be less than or equal to the end date. So let's just copy and paste this stuff right here. Control C, Control V, Control V, and then we'll just tweak it a little bit. Less than or equal to the end date. Aha, we just saved a step, didn't we? Okay, and then we'll put, let me scooch this over, because we haven't reviewed how to continue a line, but we'll do that probably in one of our very next videos. I'll just scroll down for the time being. The next range that we see is, we discussed, needs to be the region. So our named range was PT underscore reg, and the capitalization is not really pivotal here. Use a comma. And then the one that we want to use, I think we called my reg, which was a variable we trapped from the cell, when that will be south. I believe we could hit, we could at least test it out, okay? Let's try this. So hit F8, 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 F8. And so we have our dates set up here. So T sales is empty. If I hit F8, it might get an error. It did. I thought that may happen, and it's probably due to the dates being set the way they are. Let's see here. Or actually, the names, I may have done the names of these ranges wrong. So let's hit Alt-IND for the names manager. Just really review what we have here. PT underscore sales, PT underscore reg. Aha! It's not PT underscore date. It was PT underscore D added. So you got to catch yourself. Sometimes you'll I hit edit just so this would automatically be highlighted, and I could Control C to copy that, because I cheat like that sometimes. We'll go back here and change the PT date to PT D added, PTD added. Thought something looked fishy, but I figured, if something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong, and you might as well see it and, watch me troubleshoot some issues. And, I like to keep it real. I don't want people to think that everything's perfect. Because you have to troubleshoot things. You have to figure out what's going wrong. And so, it helps sometimes to see somebody work through things and see how they go through things. So I'm in F8, and hopefully, yes, there's the total sales. Oh my goodness. So now that we have this variable, total sales, you can do whatever the heck you want with that. You could say, I want to know T sales times 3, and that is what I want to end up in there. But I don't. I just want I6 to be equal to T sales. Nothing messed with it. But you could. You could trap variables and do whatever in the world that you wanted to, and you could just go on and on and on and manipulate it and add text to it and have this big old honking thing. We just want the actual value in there, so you could have all this stuff to go directly to I6, or you could have it go to T sales and then have I6 to equal T sales, and frankly it's going to take exactly the same amount of time whenever you're working here. So let's do that. And watch this cell right here, this green one, that's I6, so it's about to be equal to 2543. Hit F8, and that actually prompts another macro. But we didn't change E6, so it's all good. Alright, so that was pretty sweet. In fact, I'm going to Control-Shift-4, Control-Shift$ really, to change the formatting of this really quick. But let's say that I wanted to know what's up with the West region, and I wanted to know the total sales from 2/16/2004 up until 12/35 or 12/31/2005. So this is going to change. If I hit Alt F8, which leads me to my macros here, we call this one VBA SumIfs. So let's just let me scooch this to the side. Let's run that macro now, and it'll change it. It'll figure up the West and with these date range. Hit run and Shazam, and look, there's no function in that cell. Let us legitimately type overable. Is that a word? That's a word now. So if I hit delete, guess what's going to happen? When I go back and I run my macro, say from a button or from a user form or something, it's going to fill in all the blanks. So it almost eliminates the need for worksheet protection to some degree. I mean, whenever I started with Excel a long time ago, I was all, you got to protect everything, and you can't, let the users have any freedom to change anything, because there's a little tiny bit of truth to that. But when you know how to manipulate Visual Basic, you can really protect people almost from themselves, and you can give them more freedom to learn some stuff. You can give them freedom to have a lot more features, and that's why I'm really wanting people to absorb everything that they can from these lessons. You can create a killer program using Excel, and you really don't have to go to an accredited college and spend all this money, and you can really help people. So that is how we did a SumIf using VBA. So probably really briefly, we could go ahead and make it a little more specific. If you just wanted to get the active ones, that's valid, right? A lot of times people just want to know about the active ones. So very simply, we will manipulate and shift our macro just barely to only do the active ones. So let's say you could either put it like this, status is A, or if you never wanted the user to ever get any inactive, or any whatever you don't want it to be, you could actually not even have to disclose what you're doing here. Excuse me. Alt EAA takes away everything. So yeah, let's embed that part secretly into our thing, so people don't even have to think about that active. Of course, we only want to know active. Ha ha ha. Of course. So let's go back to Alt F11. What we want to do here is let's just hard code it. Okay. At the very end, we have our criteria. We start with the range of the sales, then we do the date added is greater than or equal to the start date, and the same range is less than or equal to the end date that we've established. And finally, the region range is region, which happens to be west at the current moment. So let's add to that by hitting comma. What's the range that we're interested in now? I think it's PT underscore status. It might be PT underscore stat. We're going to find out here in a second. And hit a comma. But this time it's not going to be based on one of the ranges that the customer or coworker puts. We're just going to hard code it. The letter A, active. If this is active, then that's what we're going to SumIfs all the total sales. I don't care about the inactive ones, or I don't care about the ones from this region and that region. That's different things that you can work out. Just, of course, double check it with your manager or whatever. Don't hard code all this stuff unless you get permission. That being said, let's hit F5 and just try it. It might change this number a little bit if they only take into account active accounts or whatever. So hit F5. Okay, it did work, and yes, that is a substantial difference. Went from over 3,000 to 939 by eliminating all the inactive, in this case, products. But, you only have $939 in active whatevers. So, yeah, it can make a huge difference. Any little shift in your VLOOKUPs, any shift in your SumIfs, some product, all these little things make a difference. So, and definitely saying south, of course, is only actives. But let's run it Alt F8, and we'll scroll down to VBA SumIfs. Okay, there's only 580. So, that being said, it's something cool to play with, and I hope this helped some people really play around with it. Don't give up. If you have questions, hey, I'm here. Let me have them, because the more people we can help, the better the world is going to be. And that may sound cheesy, but seriously, Excel is so powerful. I can't rave enough about it. I hope whoever wrote Excel, the team, I hope they're just having a blast swimming in money and all this, because they're awesome. So God bless you guys. Have an awesome Easter tomorrow, and thanks for watching.